Hello, my name is Hal Gottschall. I was born Heinz Herbert after my father, changed to Hans to make it more Dutch, then changed it to Harold to make it more American. My friends call me Hal. I am a survivor and was a hidden child during World War II. Thank you for allowing me to tell my story. I'm sure you understand it is impossible to relate to the horrors of the Holocaust. All I can say is, I am one of the very lucky ones. One of the very lucky ones. My parents were born in Germany when things became very difficult in 1934. Persecutions, Nuremberg laws, beatings in the street, concentration camps, etc., etc. I'm sure everyone knows the history of those times in Germany. They immigrated with their friends, the Bears, to Holland. There they opened a butcher shop and a sausage factory, never in their wildest dreams thinking that the Nazis would follow and invade Holland. February 1938. My father died of either a heart attack or a stroke at the age of 30, 1 month before I was born. My grandmother escaped Germany to care for me in Holland, as my mother had to work in the store. May 1940, Hitler invades Holland. Holland surrenders in 5 days. Holland surrenders in 5 days. Immediately, life became unbearable for Jews. Similarly, as in Germany, the Nuremberg laws, confiscation of property, and much, much worse. My mother lost the store and factory. They were confiscated by the Nazis. Jews could not practice their professions, could not marry Christians, etc., etc., etc. Beatings, concentration camps, and death. I lost most of my family, including all my grandparents. I was 4, 1942, when the Nazis captured my mother and I, brought us to the Holländische Schambrouw. This was a large movie theater. The Nazis ripped out all chairs and it became the place where all Amsterdam Jews were brought before being sent to concentration camps. I still remember and dream about being separated from my mother, handled by mean ladies in white coats and being extremely scared. Extremely scared. My grandmother, the one who cared for me, was captured on the streets 6 months earlier and brought there. We never saw her again. Later we learned that she was sent to Sotobar concentration camp, where she was gassed. Today, the Holländische Schambrouw is a museum. The last names of all the Jews who passed there on a wall. My grandmother's name was Aaron, the first name on the wall. Since the Germans kept unbelievable records, it was easy to locate her. But we were stunned when we learned that this old lady had the presence of mind to tell the Germans that she lived alone, rather than telling them that she lived with us and putting us in danger. Some of you may have heard of the famous writer Daniel Silva. He wrote many, many books. Among them, a book called The Rembrandt Affair. The Rembrandt Affair is about a girl who escaped from this place when her father bribed one of the guards with a Rembrandt painting. My mother and I also escaped from there. However, the bribe to a gardener, my father's ex-partner and friend Max Baer, was salamis. Yes, salamis. It is a true story. I'm not trying to make light of it, or hopefully not being insensitive. However, now that I'm safe, I can joke and say this proves some people are worth Rembrandts, others salamis. Some Rembrandts, some salamis. A few months later, my mom worked in a hospital where they sterilized Jews. Yes, sterilized Jews. The Nazis had confiscated the store and the factory, befriended an amazing woman, Toos van Steen, a nurse and member of the Dutch underground. Realizing that we could be captured again and not be so lucky, knowing that as a 5-year-old I would have to wear a star identifying me as a Jew to save my life, requested help from Toos. Can you imagine what this must have been like for my mother? She was in a strange land, lost her husband 1 month before I was born, lost her mother to the Nazis, and now, had to give away her only child. Our parting was extremely emotional for her. She stressed to this 5-year-old over and over, never tell anyone you are Jewish. Toos found a wonderful Dutch Catholic family in The Hague who took me in as their own. My mother did not know their identity for fear that if captured, the Nazis could torture her. After the war, we learned they were Toos's own unbelievable family. Reminder, their entire family was at risk. For if a Christian family hit a Jew, they could all be killed or sent to a concentration camp. Pa Hoopman was a milkman who frequently helped Jews out of the country by hiding them in a secret drawer under his milk cart. I don't know how many he saved. Nellie, my 16-year-old older sister, frequently went with him to flirt with Nazi soldiers if they came too near. Sometimes Pa and I took walks. I could still feel the warmth and security of his large hand as it enveloped my small 5-year-old hand. Moo was the matriarch, mother. As a youngin, I was spoiled. During the war years, there was very little food. I know I fully got more than my share. Tony, 2 years older than I, my brother and constant playmate. Nell and Will, my older sisters, they loved and mothered me. Yes, I was one of the very lucky ones. I was with a truly wonderful family. Not every hidden child was so lucky. There were many reasons people hid Jewish children. Some, like the Hoopmans, because they were truly good people, good Christians. Some for personal gain. Some for cheap labor. Some to convert them. I have heard and read about many such stories. In any case, I was, and was one of the very lucky ones. I thought you might be interested in some of my experiences during that time. A bomb dropped in our house, going through 3 floors and directly through a chair where I had been sitting. For some unknown reason, only God knows, again, luck was with me. I left the chair where I had been playing in the living room and went into the kitchen. Immediately, we all heard a very loud noise. The family said to each other, that was very close, very close. When we went into the living room, it was covered with about 6 inches of dust. The chair I had been sitting in was completely demolished. Miraculously, the bomb did not explode and is still there today, buried many feet below the ground. Yes, I am a very lucky man. Another, my immediate and extended family went to a funeral. My extended family went in one direction. I went with my family in another direction. Our family survived. The others were hit by a bomb. All perished. I am a very lucky man. During those years, there was very little to eat. Pa frequently went to the countryside to try to scrounge something to eat for the family. Frequently, he came back with potatoes. This time it was tulip bulbs. Unfortunately, inside the bulb is a small poisonous seed. were all very, very sick. While I was playing outside, a lady who was a Nazi sympathizer, asked me if I was a little Jewish boy. Reminder my mother emphasized when I left her at age 5, never tell anyone you are Jewish. I answered, what's Jewish? When I told Moo about it, she was very scared, but told me I was a very smart little boy. Thankfully, the woman did not take it further. Unfortunately, there were many Nazi sympathizers. Recently, I learned that Holland had the largest percent of Jews killed than in any other European country. However, there were also so many Dutch people who helped the Jews whenever they could. The principal of the school I attended, at his own peril, sent me home whenever there was a Nazi inspection. After the war, I met some of the Hopeman neighbors who indicated they knew I was a Jewish boy and never said a word. They were all truly good people. In 1945, when I was 7, at dusk, the Germans in trucks were leaving Holland. I heard shouting and cheering that the war was over. Pa had given me a small Dutch flag awaiting this day. Can you imagine? Try to picture this 7-year-old little boy in his underwear, running in the streets of The Hague, waving his Dutch flag, yelling, I'm a Jewish boy, I'm a Jewish boy. I was so happy, so happy. When it was dark, my family finally found me. Unfortunately, my mother, as many survivors, retained the scars of those ugly years. She lived a long life till 95 years old, but had a stroke at 50 and was never quite the same. As she got older, she frequently had horrific nightmares. She rarely talked about the war, but agreed to be interviewed by the Shoah Foundation, primarily to please me. I often marvel at the courage, kindness, and true human compassion of the Hopeman family. Could I put my family at risk to save a child? Yes, they saved my life. Even today, I question if something similar happened here, how would I react? Would I do the right thing? Would I do the right thing? Years later, I asked Nell, my war sister, why they did it. She said, we did what we had to do. At the end of the war, my mother, who had been hiding without any exercise, she had to sit on a couch for 12 to 14 hours at a time, not moving, until the woman she lived with returned from work. As a Nazi sympathizer, lived in the apartment below. She rode a bicycle with almost no tires from Amsterdam to The Hague, about 40 miles, to see me. Of course, I had mixed feelings about leaving my wonderful war family. In March 1947, my mother, who survived the war, and I came to this great country. As for me, the greatest luck and good fortune is having married my lovely wife, Linda, who recently passed after 57 wonderful years together. I so recognize that everything I am or achieved was because of her encouragement and constant belief in me. I have 3 wonderful, successful children and 9 of the best fantastic grandchildren, plus recently my first great-grandson, Abraham Leo after my Linda, with the last name Gottschall, which means everything to me. As I was holding Abe in my arms, next to Max, my grandson, and Dan, my oldest son, 4 generations of Gottschalls, with a tear in my eye, I thought, screw you, Hitler. Screw you, Hitler. By the way, those are not my exact words. How do you possibly thank a family for their courage and sacrifice? I know you really can't. I just hope I have led a type of life that measures up to what they did for me. In the year 2000, my entire family, children and grandchildren, the remainder of the Hochman family, Tony and his wife Edith, Nell and Will, went to Israel for the presentation of the Hochmans and Toastman Steen as righteous Christians at Yad Vashem. This is a special honor bestowed by Israel to those Gentiles who saved Jews. Nell and Will live in Tasmania. We have traveled there, and they and Tony and his wife from Holland have visited us. We took them all to Disney World. They loved it. We frequently keep in touch. Unfortunately, all have passed except Nell, who is 95 years old. Now what? Frankly, I'm scared. Hatred is rearing its ugly head again, or should I say still. What is happening in Israel by terrorist Hamas is so unbelievably horrific. Civilians, including women and children, being slaughtered, mutilated and raped, babies being decapitated, solely because they are Jews. Hamas, in their charter from its inception in 1984, wants to eliminate the state of Israel and kill all Jews. All Jews. They recently found instructions on dead Hamas killers to attack schools and hospitals, to kill everyone, including children. Unfortunately, that's not all. Look at the demonstrations worldwide, happily condemning Israel for defending its citizens. How would America react if 55,000 of its people were terrorized and murdered? I am so sorry that Israel must go into Gaza, as they must. Tragically, not only Israelis and Americans are hostages by Hamas, but also poor innocent Palestinians who are subjugated by Hamas and caught up in this web of violence. I truly also feel for them. I want to make it perfectly clear, as one who has lived through very dark days, we don't want to see any harm to innocent Arabs or Jews or Arabs. We desperately hope that one day we can all live together in peace. Shamefully today, many on social media are expounding hatred. In many places, the white supremacy movement is stronger than ever. Yes, not only Jews, but minorities, Black, brown, Asian Americans, and Muslims are frequently harassed. Bigotry and prejudice are almost acceptable, in some circles fashionable. Yes, fashionable. Could similar things happen as they did in Germany? All I can say based upon personal experience is we must be vigilant. We must be involved. We must care. To me, it is vital that we must tell and retell the story of the Holocaust and teach what we have learned about bullying and being a bystander. But at the same time, never forgetting people like the Hochmans, upstanders, who recognized evil and said, I cannot do everything, but I can do something. Let's not only dwell on the negative, but let's also glorify their and others' decency, courage, and true compassion. For as long as there are people like the Hochmans, there's hope for a better world. Usually this is where I end each time I tell my story. However, here on Village on the Green, as a TV program said, now here is the rest of the story. End of February 1947. My mom and I leave Holland for America in the Dutch Ocean liner the Veendam. I remember it was a small ship. It appeared that everyone got seasick except one 8.5-year-old little boy, me, who ate everything in sight. In those days, most foods were very scarce in Holland. At first, we stayed a few months with my mom's brother, then she worked as a chambermaid in the Catskills. Remember, neither of us spoke any English. For 3 years, we lived with a family in Scarsdale. Mom cooked and took care of the children. Then she met a bachelor, a Germanic type she knew from Germany. She married him as all she ever wanted was to be safe. Those were not good years for me, but as someone said, adversity breeds strength. At 18, I went to Syracuse University primarily to escape. Frankly, I was not ready and left after 2 years when my funds ran out. Then I went to Brooklyn College at night. Dropped out when Linda got childbed fever and almost died during finals. 16 years later, went back when Dan, my oldest, was applying to colleges. Frankly, I was ashamed, not having my bachelor's degree as Linda had her master's. At my graduation, attended by my mother, my family, and good friends, it was a big deal. I still remember sitting in cap and gown with young fellow graduates, talking how long it took them. Some said 4 years, others 5, 6, or 7. I said 21 years. I'm a very slow learner. My business career started with Jane Fields as an assistant buyer. Some of you may remember the store, as there were many in Florida. Again, I got lucky. I advanced very quickly to buyer, merchandise manager, in charge of a planning division, nicknamed Gottschall's Gorillas. And finally, they sent me to Taiwan to supervise all import buying. I learned and learned. Domestic buying is very different than buying directly from factories. Then we became very, very lucky. Linda and I both wanted another child, but for different reasons. We tried to adopt from Vietnam, but did not want to take a child from a barren couple. Linda just wanted another child without the work of a baby. Based on my background, I had to give back. You know, sometimes you give and unexpectedly, you receive back so much more. We adopted Joshua Adam Gottschall when he was 4 years old. He's half Taiwanese, half American. He's a joy. He has dramatically enriched our entire family. His adoption has set a pattern for our entire family. Dan, our oldest, has 3 wonderful biological children, Max, Gabby, Zach, plus their joy, Olivia from Korea. Josh and Jean have 2 fantastic biological girls, Sophia and Maddie, and very special Lily from Taiwan. Stacy, my daughter, has sensational Ben, plus delightful Tessa. All together, we are so very happy and so very, very lucky. We as a family always believe in playing it forward. We try to be charitable with both time and money. They say, to whom much is given, much is expected. One of my proudest moments came when I traveled to the Philippines with Josh and Dan for them as doctors to operate on the poor pro bono. They made me a cap and scrubs. I was Santa Claus, handing out candy to all the children. I guess I had the build and beard for it. What a fantastic trip. I was working in Taiwan for 2 years. Came home in 1979 when our parent company, Food Fair, went Chapter 11. I got a job with Times Square Stores, a Long Island-based retail company, as Director of Imports, buying all kinds of products, from Christmas light sets to sweaters. One of the companies they owned was Royce Union Bicycle Company. I designed and purchased all the bicycles. They primarily sold a little volume to themselves, Times Square Stores, and to about 75 small bicycle shops. Now here's my lucky star, my truly lucky star. I have a great friend from Syracuse days who did extremely well. He apparently trusted me and my ability and my work ethic. Frequently he would say, let's go into import business together. I always wanted to be my own boss, to excel and fail on my own merits and decisions. I have a rule: to be an entrepreneur, you must know everything about the product and the industry. I surely knew bicycles. I also had a vision. At that time, the industry was divided. The better big box stores sold cheap bikes, while small bicycle shops sold expensive bicycles. Those customers who wanted a better bicycle but could not afford bicycle shop prices, they had nowhere to go. Again, so lucky. The parent company, Times Square Stores, was having financial trouble. So we bought Royce Union Bicycle inventory at 82 cents on the dollar of cost. My partner put up most of the money, for I had very little. I knew every bicycle as I personally bought each piece. At the beginning, my partner owned 80% of the company. I owned 20%. However, he gave me the opportunity, based upon performance, to buy 10% more each year from my profits, until we were 50-50 partners. Thankfully, it worked. We and my partner and his wife are still best friends today. Yes, it all worked. Royce Union was successful. I am a very lucky man. If I may, let me tell you 2 lucky business stories. I wanted to get our bicycles into Sears. At that time, they were the perfect outlet for our better bicycles. Unfortunately, the buyer would not see us. One day, the Toys R Us buyer suggested we talk to a young man from Roadmaster, another brand. We hired him, not knowing that he knew the Sears buyer. Because of him, we finally got our audience with Sears bicycle buyer in June. The conference went extremely well. The buyer liked 6 of our samples and requested that he stored them in his sample room for a review in October with all his other samples. 2 weeks later, I received a call from Sears. Could I, with my 2 men, come to Chicago to see the buyer? Of course, we were delighted and curious. Now this again is the lucky part. We were informed that the Sears vice president went into the sample room and requested, could he have the 20-inch freestyle trick bicycle for his son? Of course. This was the same bicycle that Toys R Us was selling very well in slightly different colorations. Could they have 24 bicycles to test in one of their stores to sell at $199? $100 more than all his other 20-inch bicycles. We did not have any in stock in our warehouse, as we sold Toys R Us direct into their warehouse. I agreed to do something my mother told me never to do. I bought retail 24 bicycles from Toys R Us and sold them wholesale to Sears. Fortunately, they sold like hotcakes. 3 years later, we were Sears' major bicycle supplier. Another story. All bicycles have names. Unfortunately, most companies frequently do not do a good job to ensure that the name is not used by a competitor. One day, I get a telephone call from the president of Huffy, the largest bicycle manufacturer in the USA. Hal, we have a major problem. We have spent more than $1 million to advertise a mountain bicycle we call Colossus. Plus, we have a great deal of inventory with that named bicycle. We just noticed that you have that same named bicycle already in Toys R Us. What do you want us to do? It's a small industry. Why try to kill each other? I could have easily requested $100,000. Another company in a similar situation did. Instead, I requested he send me a letter that if something similar happened to us, I would be covered. The problem went away for Huffy. And 3 years later, Huffy bought Royce Union. For those interested, Huffy still owns Royce Union Bicycle Company, and you can find them on the internet and Amazon. We sold Royce Union in December of 1997. I agreed to work for Huffy for 2 years. Then, after owning several smaller used sailboats, I purchased my dream boat, a new 42-foot Catalina with every imaginable luxury equipment. We initially called it the Flying Dutchman, after the opera, the Vliegende Hollander, and of course, my Dutch background. Linda brought 300 chocolate nuggets with that name. We later changed it to Good Fortune. No problem, we ate the nuggets anyway. We ate the nuggets anyway. In 2000, we, with another couple, sailed motored from Long Island to West Palm Beach with a great deal of sightseeing along the way. It took us 7 weeks. It was wonderful. In November 1999, we moved to Ibis, a golf country club community in West Palm Beach. We loved our life. We made many wonderful friends, traveled a great deal, and enjoyed every special day. In 2001, we brought my mother to Florida to a nice apartment very close to Ibis. She was an amazing woman, had very little schooling. However, in the mid-90s, she still read the New York Times daily. I called or visited her almost every day. I still remember each time I left Toys R Us, called her and she would inquire, did I get the order? Finally, when I said yes, she asked, did I check the credit? Not bad for a 94-year-old, uneducated lady. 2019, life changed. Linda, my wonderful wife, became sick with many, many different ailments. I became very concerned. What would happen to her if I became sick or passed? We decided to move near my son, Josh, and his family, in an independent community, just in case. You know the saying, man plans and God laughs. Unfortunately, Linda passed less than 2.5 months after we arrived at Village on the Green. She never got to enjoy the beautiful surroundings, the people, both staff and friends, that make this place so very special. I am a very lucky man. Sometimes I think how very blessed I have been. Is there a greater power that has watched over me? I think so. Linda always said, it's not where you begin, but where you end that counts. What better place than in beautiful Florida, in Village on the Green? Thank you. I would be happy to answer any questions.